I got there around 4:12 a.m. The air still clung to the night like a damp second skin, thick and quiet, wrapping the runway in a kind of hush that made every footstep feel like a question. Most nights at the south gate of Ventura Air Terminal were uneventful, a ghost port for private charters, diplomatic flights, and celebrity vanishings. You learn not to ask questions in a place like that. You learn that silence is the best currency, especially when someone slides an unmarked clipboard across the desk and tells you, without telling you, that this one isn't going in the logs. That morning, though, everything felt wrong from the moment I stepped out of the service truck. There was a chill in the air, but it wasn't cold. It was like the temperature had been tuned incorrectly, just slightly off, like the room tone in a movie that doesn't match the scene. I looked around and saw the fuel truck already idling at the tarmac, no driver in sight. The plane had just landed. A sleek, matte black Gulfstream with no tail ID, no markings at all except for the faint shimmer of an hourglass symbol, etched, etched into the fuselage near the emergency exit. That symbol stuck with me. It wasn't on any of the registered logs I'd memorized over the years. I'd seen VIP emblems, monarch crests, even mafia sigils burned into private jets, but never this one. The door hissed open quietly, too quietly for hydraulics, and 4 figures stepped out. No talking, no rushing, just a coordinated walk that felt less like movement and more like intention made visible. Each wore a pale gray coat to the ankle, high-collared with the same sideways hourglass stitched into the cuffs. One of them carried what looked like a portable diffuser, the kind you see in spa commercials. But this wasn't for relaxation. They didn't spray it, they just let it release. The scent hit me about 5 seconds later. Not strong, not floral exactly, but manufactured to feel floral. Like a synthetic memory of roses made in a lab that never saw sunlight. I knew that smell. I didn't want to admit it, but I did. The same exact one had flooded the air 2 years ago. Same gate, same hour, right after the Rose Bowl show, when an unmarked plane had come and gone with no cargo and no recorded takeoff. The woman that time had boarded in silence, too. Wide-brimmed hat, veil barely visible, no entourage, just cases. Strange cases. This time, the cases looked heavier. 2 of them. One, boxy titanium, almost square like a diplomat's briefcase, had been stretched sideways. The second one was stranger, velvet-wrapped, soft and rectangular like something meant for a VHS tape. And, in 2025, who the hell travels with analog media? I signed off the manifest without reading it. There wasn't anything to read anyway. Just a wax seal and a handwritten note in all caps red ink. No tower pings. Manifest sealed. It's for her. That her was capitalized like scripture. The ground crew didn't ask anything. They had seen this before, maybe not the exact setup, but the same silence. The kind that spreads like fog through your lungs and makes your breath feel borrowed. When she stepped out of the terminal shadows and into the faint runway light, I didn't see her face. Not because she was far, not because she was hidden. I just couldn't. The hat, wide-brimmed and sharply angled, pulled light away from her like it was folding space. Her coat didn't move in the breeze, it moved before it. The kind of presence that arrives half a second before the body does. No one helped her with the steps. She walked like the ground already knew where to go, like gravity deferred to her. That sounds insane, I know, but you weren't there. She boarded without a word. The cabin sealed not with a click, but with a sound I can only describe as a hush. The air shifted. Not a breeze, but like the molecules themselves paused. I stood by the edge of the service rail and watched the plane just sit there for a moment, as if the atmosphere needed permission to resume. The tower didn't ping. Of course it didn't. Our system doesn't log flights like that. Hell, our cameras don't even register the tarmac after these charters leave. But I waited anyway. It's habit. You stand there. You watch the lights flicker once. You pretend you're in control of something. When I got back to the operations trailer, I checked the external feeds. All blank. Every single frame from 4 o'clock to 4:48 was a void. Not black, not corrupted, just nothing. As if the cameras had blinked. I checked the thermal logs, no heat signatures, not even from the fuel truck. I ran a pressure sweep on the gate sensors. Flat line. Not like zero activity. More like they hadn't been turned on. I looked at the clipboard again. There, in the corner, in the same red pen, do not summon her in public. The performance was private. I remember the shiver that ran down my spine. Not fear exactly, more like a message being delivered straight to your nervous system. That's when the knock came. Not on the door, on my phone. No ringtone. Just a buzz so low I felt it in my bones before I heard it. No caller ID, just the kind of vibration that feels like it was never meant for your ears. I let it buzz twice. I should have ignored it. But I didn't. I picked up and heard a voice like sandpaper run through a cassette player that hadn't been cleaned since 1986. Low, unnatural, like it wasn't just filtered, but decayed. It said, that wasn't an exit, it was an extradition. Then silence. Not call-ended silence, real silence, like the sound itself had stopped existing. I dropped the phone. My hands were trembling. My breath didn't feel like mine. I turned to leave the trailer, and there it was, the velvet pouch, sitting on the console. I hadn't seen anyone come in. The door was locked. I didn't hear a step, but the pouch was there, shaped like it still held the heat of a hand that had never existed. I didn't open it, couldn't, just stared at the edge of the cloth where the fibers curled like they'd been dipped in memory. Something shimmered along the seam, not glitter, not dust, more like memory made solid. I reached for the screen, tried to log into the flight clearance system, and the monitor blinked off. Not crash, not power loss, just off, like it had closed its eyes. I sat in that chair for a long time. I don't remember how long. The air didn't move. The hum of the trailer was gone, like even the electricity was holding its breath. Then I heard it. Low, faint. A melody I hadn't heard since I was 7, playing in the background of a video my cousin used to loop. Something about choreography and candles and a woman who could turn silence into song. That same hum. That exact note. The playback had begun. But I hadn't pressed anything, hadn't touched a single key. My fingers were numb, my body locked in place, and I realized something. The hum wasn't coming from the screen. It was coming from the pouch. The velvet trembled slightly, like it remembered being touched. And then, right before the sun rose, I realized I had forgotten something. Or maybe something had been erased. I tried to write a report, tried to note down the time, the weight, the seal, but the pen wouldn't move. Not that it was jammed, just that my hand refused. Somewhere in the back of my skull, something whispered, this wasn't logged because it never landed. And when I looked at the runway through the side window, the fog had lifted, but there were no tracks, no marks, no burn on the asphalt, just the smell. That perfume that wasn't perfume, like memory had taken physical form. Chapter 1 ended before I even knew it had started, and when I finally opened the velvet pouch 3 nights later, what I found inside wasn't a tape, it was a sketch. And it was of me, sitting right there, wearing gloves with lips sewn shut and eyes still open. They called it the ghost floor. That was a joke at first. Maintenance guys slap dumb names on everything, especially the parts of the courthouse nobody else touches. This one was technically listed as sublevel B2, but we all knew it was older than that. You could feel it in the walls. Not just the paint, which peeled in thin, perfect strips like skin from old fruit, but the way the pipes hummed just half a key out of tune, as if the entire structure was remembering a song it had never learned. I'd been working nights down there for almost 15 years. You mop enough floors under closed-circuit lights, you start to feel like the building has moods. Some nights it breathes. Some nights it holds its breath. That night it exhaled slowly and didn't stop. I had one job to do: replace a cracked outlet cover near the vending machine wall behind the closed testimony corridor. That corridor isn't on the official layout anymore. Doesn't matter. You sweep it twice a week, you know it's there. I never liked the name Ghost Lane, but the guys weren't wrong. Sound moves strange down there. Footsteps don't echo. They dissolve. I was crouched behind the vending unit, flashlight in mouth, unscrewing the busted panel when I realized the wall behind it felt too light. Not drywall light, hollow. Like there was space behind it that shouldn't exist. I tapped twice. A hollow thunk answered. I stopped. That kind of sound doesn't come from insulation. It comes from secrets. I pried gently, slipping my multi-tool between the frame and the wall seam, and the panel eased open with a whisper, not a creak. Tucked inside the narrow cavity was a flat paper sheet, thick, courtroom grade, edges frayed like it had been ripped from a larger pad. A sketch. At first glance, it looked like one of the official artist renderings we file after each closed hearing. But this one had no stamp, no signature, no initials, no case number, just a faint charcoal drawing of a courtroom I recognized instantly. North Chamber, the one they use for sealed witness testimony when the press gets kicked out and the judge speaks only through intermediaries. But the angle was wrong. It showed the gallery, not the bench, not the witness, but the observation glass behind it. And in the foreground, sitting alone, was a woman, hat low, shoulders squared, face almost entirely blank. No mouth, no features, just a blur, except the eyes. 2 glowing pupils rendered in soft red chalk, barely visible but impossible to ignore. Like they were watching you even after you turned away. Under the image, written in a pencil that looked like it had been pressed into the paper with slow intent, were the words, "Witness 13, do not transcribe." I stood up too fast, hit my head on the edge of the metal dispenser. Didn't bleed, but it felt like a warning. I slid the sketch into my clipboard and walked, maybe too quickly, back to the security filing room. There, I laid the paper flat under the desk lamp. The weight of the paper was wrong, too dense for standard issue. The smell hit me then, soft, floral, with a bitter aftertaste like the echo of that same lab-made perfume I remembered from years ago, the one that clung to the velvet pouch. I flipped the sketch. On the back, barely visible under angled light, was an embossed stamp. Session 9. Initials BB, no surname, just BB. The pencil smudges around the edge weren't graphite. They were dried, reddish-brown. Could have been ink. I told myself it was ink, but part of me knew better. I tried to scan the image into the work log archive system using the monitor we keep for high-security audits. The screen flickered. Then everything went black. Not just the screen. The desk lamp, the overhead light, even the hallway sensors blinked out for half a second like someone had flipped a switch from somewhere deeper. Then came the smell. Burned wire mixed with something too sweet, like flowers that had been left in a closed room too long and started to ferment. The sketch pulsed under the lamp as if it had veins. I stepped back, but the edges began to bleed. Not drip, not smear, just bloom, like something inside the paper had finally thawed. Red stains grew at the corners, curling the parchment like heat does to old photographs. I tried to breathe. Couldn't. The room felt like it had been vacuum sealed. That's when my supervisor walked in. Didn't knock, didn't ask why I was in the secured room. He just looked at the sketch and said flat, almost bored, "You're not clearing trash anymore. You're clearing memory." Then handed me a folder. A manila envelope, thin, sealed with a wax imprint I didn't recognize. He didn't explain, just said, "File this under corridor noise, level 0, and then walked out. The door closed behind him with a sound that wasn't a latch but something older, like a stone slab finding its groove. I waited till the cameras stopped blinking. I turned off the motion log and carefully folded the sketch. That's when I noticed something I'd missed. Between the creases, faint and dark, was a hand-drawn seal. Not ink, charcoal, pressed in by hand. It resembled the federal court seal, but corrupted. The eagle was facing the wrong way, and its eyes had been scratched out. Beneath it, in old cursive script, were the words, "The Queen was in the room." I froze. The lights flickered again. I took the folder, the sketch, and went home without clocking out. When I got home, I slid the folded drawing into my sock drawer and went to the bathroom. 20 minutes later, it was gone. In its place, a VHS tape. No label, just a sticky note. Playback, session 9. Viewer, you. I didn't have a VCR, hadn't seen one since high school, but somehow, in the corner of my bedroom, there it was. A vintage player I didn't own, plugged in, glowing faintly red. I didn't press play, but it started spinning anyway. That's when I heard her humming. Most people think government audio work is glamorous, like you're always tuning mics in high-profile courtrooms or cleaning up secret recordings of spies whispering codes over scrambled frequencies. That's not the job. Not mine, anyway. I work sound cleanup for the DOJ's Internal Media Archive, a backroom gig that mostly involves isolating coughs, scrubbing courtroom feedback, and filtering out the static left behind when cheap lapel mics clip against polyester ties. My name's not on any cases. I don't attend hearings. I don't even wear a badge. I sit in a windowless room between the old AV vault and the break room with the broken coffee machine that spits out brown water and hope I get through another shift without an analyst breathing down my neck because someone sneezed too loud during a closed testimony. Last Tuesday, though, something new came across my desk. It wasn't an email, no request ID, no case number. Just a red envelope folded precisely in half, the kind you only see in Federal Preservation Protocol wax sealed, not taped, not glued, sealed like it mattered. My name wasn't on it, just one line written in dark blue pencil across the front. Session 9, playback required. Viewer cleared. No return address, no clearance code, just that. I held it like it might bite. Took it to the archivist's desk. Didn't say anything, just handed it over. He didn't meet my eyes, just nodded, stood, and vanished into the vault. 10 minutes later, he came back with a lead-lined case like something meant for plutonium. Inside was a black VHS tape with no sticker, no timestamp, just silver ink scrawled across the front. For her ears only. The metal felt cold. Not plastic cold, real cold. Cold like something stored for years beneath concrete and caution. I took it to Chamber C, the only room left with analog playback that's completely isolated, no network, no CCTV, just magnetic shielding and 2 deadbolted doors that don't open from the outside once sealed. I logged in using my keycard and dropped the lights to manual dim. Checked the filters, confirmed no outbound signal, no audio bleed. Slid the tape in. Hit play. Static. At first, nothing. Just that soft white snow old TVs make when they don't know who they are. Then red. The screen turned red. Not blood red, not bright, just red. Like the kind of lighting they used in 90s music videos when the tone was moody and expensive. A room came into focus. Studio setting. Empty chair, soft lighting hum in the background. The mic on the table was active. I could see the LED blinking, but there was no one sitting there. Then the audio started. A hum. Soft, low. It was her. I didn't need software to tell me that. I didn't need a vocal print match. I knew. The timbre, the pacing, the gentle hesitation in the third note. I knew that voice from childhood, from old DVDs my mother watched while folding laundry on her night shifts, from late-night infomercials selling her albums under flickering hotel lights. I had forgotten I knew her until I heard her again. She wasn't singing, not really, just humming, like remembering a melody instead of performing it. Then she spoke. Not to anyone, not to the camera, just aloud. I told him not to start the ritual, but he already had. Her voice was low, deliberate, like velvet unraveling in water. He didn't rehearse it. He rewound it. My chest tightened. There was something about how she spoke that made the air feel thick, like she wasn't narrating. She was recalling, performing memory instead of testimony. She continued. The gloves weren't for warmth. They were for memory. We don't carry fingerprints. We carry playback. I paused the tape, or tried to. The button didn't respond. Instead, the screen flickered, then jumped backward 6 seconds. Same moment, same words, replayed. Only this time, the pitch was slightly deeper, as if someone else had spoken them with her. Then again. Rewind, playback. Her words looped, not exactly, but like someone trying to teach a song in fragments, testing which version would stick. The VHS counter didn't go forward. It moved backward. Each time she stopped, the tape reset a few frames. The system wasn't recording time. It was consuming it. I stared. The shadows on the wall behind the chair began to stretch. At first, they looked like lighting artifacts, but they grew taller, out of sync with the objects in the room. One shadow raised its hand. She didn't. The shadow moved before she did. That was when I realized this wasn't a live feed, wasn't even a recording in the conventional sense. It was a loop, but not an echo, A rehearsal. For something that hadn't happened yet, or maybe already had. I tried to eject the tape. It resisted. A long whir, then a click, like a jaw unlocking. As the deck opened, a final burst of static poured out, not noise exactly, but her hum again, rising from the machine like breath. I packed the tape back into the case and left the chamber. Didn't log the session, didn't write a report, just walked back to my desk and sat still. The base of my neck vibrated like someone had tapped a tuning fork inside my spine. At lunch, I told no one, laughed at a joke I didn't hear, ate a sandwich I don't remember buying. Afterward, I reached into my drawer for a pack of mic filters and found something else. A pair of gloves, red satin, elbow length, folded precisely. No tag, no brand. My size. I hadn't brought them, hadn't seen them, but they were warm, like they'd just been taken off. There was no note, no signature, just the sound. A low hum in my own throat, and somehow I already knew the tune. The playback wasn't meant for me, but now I had heard it. They didn't send an email, no official order, no memo, not even a phone call routed through secure lines. Just a tap, midnight, glass door, flat knuckles. I turned in my chair at the Quantico Records substation, still halfway through logging timestamps from an unrelated perjury case, and saw him standing there, suit black, tie gray, badge flipped inward, face unreadable like a composite sketch drawn from memory that hadn't happened yet. He didn't introduce himself, just said, "You're being reassigned. 48 hours. Bring your black passport." Then he handed me the envelope, brown, creased at the corners like it had been carried too far. No seal, no logo, just my name and 3 letters. BK, that was all. By the time I blinked, he was gone. I didn't pack, didn't ask where. The flight itinerary wasn't printed. It was handed off to me at a holding desk in Dulles under the name Executive Diplomatic Routing. That's code for the kind of movement that doesn't get logged. No customs, no embassy trail, just air between one locked door and another. I arrived in London 30 hours later, not at Heathrow, but at a secondary field strip used mostly for technical landings and urgent repatriations. They didn't say escort. They said handler. I wasn't taken to an embassy. Instead, a car took me to the east wing of an old hotel that had been under renovation since the mid-2000s, at least that's what the scaffolding said. But the elevator still worked. And it had a button marked M that none of the others did. The keycard pulsed red until I reached a specific hallway. Then green. That's when I remembered what they told me. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't sit. Don't look in any mirrors. I thought it was a joke. Until I stepped inside the suite. The walls were mirrors. Not decorative, not glass. Real mirrors, everywhere. Floor to ceiling, table legs, lampshades, door frames. Even the ceiling was mirrored. 1,000 versions of myself reflected back. And in the middle of all of it, silent, still, was her. She stood near the window, which wasn't really a window, just a stretch of reflection where sky should have been. She didn't face me at first, just hummed, barely audible. But the note cut through the room like a warm wire. I froze, not from fear, from familiarity. Her silhouette didn't belong to anyone else, not on this planet. Wide-brimmed hat, shoulders that held stillness like royalty. Her hands folded at her waist, covered in red gloves. She turned slowly, her face cast in shadow except for her lips. She didn't smile at first, Just look through me. Not at me. Through me. I held out the envelope, stupidly, like it meant something, like it explained why I was here. My fingers shook slightly. She didn't take it. She glanced at it, then tilted her head slightly, then said softly, "You already summoned me once. This is just rehearsal." Her voice didn't echo. It didn't need to. It carried not through the room but through my ribs like a note struck inside the cavity of a forgotten piano. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, like a sustained note waiting to resolve. Then she nodded. Not at me, at something behind me. I turned. There was nothing, just more mirrors. When I turned back, the envelope was gone. So was she. I was standing in the same room, but it felt empty in a new way, the kind of empty that happens after applause. My chest pocket felt heavy. I reached in. The envelope wasn't there. In its place, a folded sheet of paper, thick, slightly damp, like it had dried over something alive. I opened it carefully. It wasn't a letter. It was a lyrics sheet, handwritten in red, not ink, something else. The lines didn't rhyme. They didn't scan. They didn't read like song. They read like memory and script. If the playback begins, let her hum. If the gloves appear, do not speak. If the room reflects more than once, you're in the loop. You never left. In the corner, a thumbprint. Smudged, partial, familiar. I didn't know how long I stood there. When I came to, I was in a car again. Rain on the windshield in perfect, even taps like metronome beats. I didn't remember exiting the building. I didn't remember being escorted. But my seatbelt was buckled. My phone buzzed. No number, just a file, no name, just a waveform pulsing. Titled, Summons, Playback to Viewer, You. I didn't press play, but it started anyway. The hum began again, this time inside my own head. I blinked. My hands were covered, red satin. I hadn't brought gloves, but they fit perfectly.